What is up, guys? So today we're going to talk about the toughest prison that I've been in my opinion. This is not the right answer, it's not the wrong answer, it's just my opinion of the toughest jail that I've been in all my life. Now, I'm an ex-drug addict, so I've spent a lot of time, I've spent years in prisons, I've been in 8 different prisons, and this is just my opinion on which was the toughest that I've been in. I'm also going to do a little roundup of what's been happening on YouTube, all the hypocrisy, the double standards, yeah, just have a little roundup. So let's get into it. So I watched the BKFC event this weekend, and Paul Venice looked solid. I think in order to beat Paul, you're gonna have to get someone who's bigger and stronger than him, you know, someone who can really dig, that can keep him off, and he's going to be tough to beat. He looks pretty good on the weekend, and the guy was the same size as him. I know size doesn't mean everything, but like I said, I think you're gonna have to be a big, strong dude. If you're gonna have to be bigger and stronger than him. If you come in at the same size and weight, I think Paul's just gonna walk through him. But yeah, good win for Paul. I watched Danny Christian, Justice Miller, and when it first started, I thought, you know what, he's just gonna walk through him here. He was catching him, he knocked him down. I thought it's going to be an easy night, but Justice Miller stuck with it, you know, turned it around and put up a good fight and busted him up in the end, but Danny was the right winner. There was some controversy with Shadow Bacon, of course. I mean, Shadow Bacon now, apparently he's not a wrong'un anymore, you know. This is the YouTube hypocrisy and the double standards. Like, everybody was like, oh, Shadow Bacon, he's a convicted rapist, stay away from him. But now he's got a bit of traction, everybody's like, oh yeah, well, let's be his mate now. I even saw Brian Cockrell like defending him, saying, oh yeah, he's not a wrong'un, he only grabbed her by the throat and raped her, you know what I mean? So he's not really a wrong'un. But he's knocking about with Paddy Conroy. I don't really watch that much of Paddy Conroy because I can never understand what he's saying. He's got such a strong accent. But no, against Paddy Conroy, he was recording at the BKFC event, which was pretty fun to watch. I saw he was with Shadow Bacon, and I saw him, they bumped into, what was his name now? Gary Slater, is it? A bare knuckle fight, him with a big massive face. And they asked him about Brett May. And I've not seen out of Brett, he's not made any videos, he might be locked up again, I don't know. But they asked that Gary Slater about him, and he says, oh yeah, he owes me some money, I'm going to beat him up. And he says Brett was on the protection wing in prison. Now, I find it hard to believe because I've done time with Brett. And, you know what I mean, he is a big, strong, mental, he's loud, he's aggressive. I find it, when you talk about being built for prison, that's what Brett is. He loves it in there, he thrives in there. So for him to be on protection, I can't really see that. But, you know, stranger things have happened. And yeah, it was quite interesting. He was going around filming everything, and apparently they bumped into Creepy Craig, and Creepy Craig crapped himself. And there's pictures of him, you know, with his little silly mohawk looking like a garden gnome. And apparently they pulled up on him and he crapped himself. That's why you never see me call people out, you know, because if they pull up on me, then I'm knackered, you know. I'm not a tough guy, I'm not a fighter, so I don't really call people out. I might have a little joke at their expense, but, you know, I don't ever call anyone out or make any really bad accusations or anything like that. I just have a little bit of a laugh with him. But yeah, Brian Cockrell's now Paddy Conroy's best mate, and it's fascinating for me to see because Paddy's only a little, just looks like a little old man now with one eye, and yet everybody's terrified of him. And even Brian Cockrell is like giddy and getting excited when Paddy Conroy's there. And I'm just thinking, well, hang on a sec, didn't he like try to murder you? Nearly chopped one of your legs off and he was going to throw you in the sea, but now you're here getting all excited that he's on alive with him. But yeah, fascinating to watch. But anyway, that was the BKFC event. That's the dark side of the YouTube. So, the toughest prison I've been in, hands down, Doncatraz. I mean, 90% of the violence I saw in prison was in Doncaster. Back in the 90s when it first opened, it was a Cat A, triple Cat A prison, and it was just a tough, harsh environment. I remember when I first got there, before I'd even got onto the wing, I'd seen 2 very serious assaults. One guy got his head smashed in down at reception, and one guy a black guy got burnt with red hot water, and they was just bringing him out as I was walking in, and I was like, Jesus, man, what am I going to do? I'm not a tough guy, you know what I mean? How am I going to survive this? It was brutal. People were just getting slashed and burnt with red hot water over nothing, over a game of pool. It's like, oh, I'm next. No, I'm next. Oh, right then. Go and get a razor blade, whoosh, straight down the face. Over a game of pool. I remember one of my mates got slashed with what he did is, you used to get phone cards back then, and this kid had sharpened up this phone card, and he had an argument with one of my mates, and he went and got this and slashed him straight down his face over some potatoes or something off a servery. And that was the mentality in there. It was just crazy. People were getting battered, and there were no outside charges back then, so if you slashed someone back then, it was just a couple of days down at the block, and that was it. And it was just crazy. I remember one of my mates was arguing with this guy, and he had the red hot iron, because you could get the iron to do some ironing, and he was stood on the top deck, and I just walked above him with this red hot iron and dropped it straight on his head and burnt him. Crazy. But yeah, it was absolutely mental back then. I remember there was different wings, Doncaster wing, Hull wing, Leeds wing, and if you was on a Doncaster wing and you was from Hull, we used to call them codheads, and if they put you on this, if you were a codhead and you came onto the Doncaster wing, you'd just get your head smashed in and they'd send you straight off, just because you were from Hull. That's how crazy it was. I remember my mate went in to have a fight with a kid from Sheffield, and he beat him up, but then when he came back out, he lifted his top up. He says, oh, I think he scratched me. He had a big slice straight down his back. I said, you better get to hospital, mate. He's cut you wide open. And that was the mentality back then. It was just absolutely crazy. And anybody who says, oh, Donny's not that bad, you know what I mean? I was there in 2014, it weren't that bad. It probably wasn't, because it's different now, you know. I think it's a resettlement home now, I'm not too sure. But back in the 90s, 1994, it was totally different. It was absolutely mental, especially on the YOs. I remember the first time I met Brett May in there. It'd just been started up from the YOs, and they put him on the cons. And he came over, and it was the next morning, and he come over, he was all flustered and angry. I said, what's up with you? He said, oh, fucking next door neighbour had his music on all night. He says, that's fucking beef, I'm going to smash his head in. I said, chill out, dude. You're on the cons now, you know what I mean? You don't have to fight everyone. And there was a lot of shouting out the window, because there was no TVs back then. You was lucky if you got a book. So everybody, the TV was the window, you know, you just listened to everybody arguing, and there was some good banter back then. It was funny as hell. You could just lay on your bed and listen to everybody slagging each other off, and so there was some really good creative whips back and forth. But the trouble is, it was all night, you know. If you wanted to go to bed at 9 o'clock, there was no chance. It was just screaming like a crazy freaking jungle all night, up until like 3 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, if you want to sleep, don't go to jail. Yeah, but that was Doncaster, by far the toughest jail I've ever been in. Most jails that I've been in, there'd be like a fight once a month with, you know, maybe one very serious incident once every 4 or 5 months. But in Doncaster, it was every day. Every day you'd hear a smash, and there'd be someone trying to glass someone with a porcelain cup or a coffee jar, and then you'd hear doors slamming, and you'd hear the trainer squeaking on the floor as someone's fighting, and all the time, every single day. Absolutely mental, Doncaster. But yeah, bullying was really bad as well. It was like, if I remember right, it was one of the highest suicide rates in any prison in all of England back then. There was that many people killing themselves because they couldn't cope because of the bullying. It was terrible. And some people didn't survive it. But yeah, anyway, Doncaster's by far the toughest jail I've been in, and the most violent. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, press the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Bonjour, neuf de pape.